What if I told you that you could also do this, no matter your age, your gender, or your body type? Hi everyone, I'm Nupur Chaudhuri. I'm a pole athlete, but I wasn't always one. It was at the age of 32 that I decided to completely dismantle the script of my life. I was a journalist, a deputy editor with a very reputed newspaper in Pune, and a footwear designer. I had the titles and the prestige that society tells you is the ultimate finish line. I was successful, yes, but somewhere I felt there was something missing. You know, it was like my soul was searching for something more, something beyond, within my grasp, yet beyond. I was telling everyone else's stories through my words, and yet I felt like my story still needed to be written. And that's when I chose a path that came with a heavy, often whispered, social stigma attached to it. I chose pole dancing, or like I like to say it, pole dancing chose me. I would travel 3.5 hours one way to Mumbai, do a 1-hour pole session, and drive 3.5 hours back to Pune. I'd fallen hook, line, and sinker in love with pole. It was this choice, though, that helped me view the world differently. I want you to close your eyes and picture a glass box. Now, the walls of this box are not made up of physical walls. They're made up of the words no, you're too old, you can't, you shouldn't. And the most dangerous phrase in the human language, what will people say? But when I started pole, I realized that though we are all trapped in these cages throughout our life, at different stages of our life, but we actually have the power to spread our wings and fly out. You know, I realized that pole dancing was going to be that hammer in my hand to shatter that glass box. And let's be honest, when I'm 10 feet up in the air, hanging upside down for dear life, there is no room for people's opinion. The opinion of the world just goes silent. All the noise is drowned out. You know, what will people say is that universal ghost that accompanies each one of us throughout our life. It is that fear that dictates what you wear, what you speak, what you do, or the dreams that you choose to kill. We're constantly worried about the judgment of our neighbors and peers, the whispers of strangers in real life, or those digital shadows, you know, the people who sit behind screens and pass judgments about us. And that's when you realize you're actually performing for a crowd that doesn't really exist. And yet, we give that very crowd the power to define our potentials. You know, the old me would have been paralyzed here today. I would have stood here worrying what you, sitting in front of me, was thinking about a woman who dances on a pole. I would be wondering what judgment you are forming in your mind about me. But not today, thanks to pole. I fell hook, line, and sinker with pole. It became my life. So obviously, I spent a lot of time, money, energy in progressing in this skill. So I traveled to Dubai, Thailand, Europe. I made sure that I trained with world champions in pole sport, and I learned the best of technique with them. But more than that, I learned their strength, their confidence, and their determination to stand out in this world where it is much safer to just follow the norm. You know, from them I learned that it is okay to start anew and that it is okay to fail. When you fail, you will get back up. Mind you, this is not easy. Life is not easy. Pole is definitely not easy. I was that girl in school who wrote her own excuse notes to stop myself from running those rounds before my PT class. Fitness and exercise were alien concepts to me. If you mentioned exercise, even in my later years, I would walk the other way. Not run, because I hate running, but I would just walk away. And then I went and picked a sport that required me to be suspended in the air, using every fiber, every muscle in my body. And the fact that this sport has its roots in the sex worker and stripper community definitely did not make it an easy choice for me being here in India. You know, as a society, we are shrouded by narrow-mindedness, by prejudice. When I say pole dancing, you're not going to think of the athlete or the artist. You're not going to think of the pole bruises, the friction burns, the hours and hours of hard work, slipping, falling, getting back, going again. No. You are going to think of women dancing in a bar for entertainment. But let me tell you, it is because of the grit of these pioneering women that today I have this in my life. This pole that has become a tool for freedom, for creative expression, a tool for my empowerment, and not only just me, for hundreds of women across the globe. And today, pole has stepped out of the strip clubs to also be a form of art, fitness, sport, creative movement therapy. It is a sport that is shattering all the ceilings that society tries to place above us, literally and metaphorically. You know, pole has taught me that you can hold on to either this pole or people's opinions. There is no room for both. There is not enough grip for both. There is only enough grip for one. And when you learn to trust your body to grip the pole and stay up there and smile while you're at it and make it look easy, you definitely stop needing the world's permission to exist. My father, when I told him I was going to go for a pole dancing class, first I was met with silence. And then he said, from journalism to footwear design, and now she wants to dance in a bar. He just didn't know better. My mother, on the other hand, decided to accompany me for class. She was like, let me see what this pole dancing is about. So we drove together to Mumbai, and she sat in that studio in a corner, and she watched me struggle to lift my feet up. For my first spin that I learned, she watched me fail, she watched me fumble. But she also watched a woman try to reclaim her power and a woman trying to learn what true strength really is. My father's perspective shifted much later when I competed internationally and I won silver. We're dancing in the middle of the night all over the place because I won. But he saw the physical evidence on my body. He saw the rough calluses on my hand. He saw the strength of my core. He saw the muscle definition on my body. But more than that, he saw the radiance on my face. He saw a daughter who was finally truly happy. And ever since, my father beams with pride when he talks about me. In fact, he actually sends my videos to his friends and he's like, that's my daughter and this is what she does. Society tells us, it sets standards for us. It tells us you're too thin, you're too fat, you're too tall, you're too short, you're too fair, you're too dark. But Paul says, stop. You are enough. Just the way you are perfect. We set our own standards in pole. But this took me time to learn. When I was younger, I was always confident, but I could never wear a swimsuit on the beach or even at the pool. I was always very worried about, the stretch marks that I have on my thigh, the discoloration of my skin, which most brown women would resonate with. I was worried about the cellulite on my legs. We've always been taught what beauty standards are in the magazines and newspapers. I was even working for them. So I could not wear that swimsuit, but when I started pole class, I realized I need my skin to grip this pole. My skin is what's going to keep me safe up there. If I wear clothes, I'm going to slip and fall when I try to grip the pole. So I had to shed layers of clothes, and with that, I shed my inhibitions. I realized that these things that I looked at as flaws were such an integral part of me. They were giving me success here. And I fell in love with my body. I still do. Every single time that I get onto the pole, even today, I thank my body, I thank every fiber in my cell, and I fall in love with it over and over again. I've seen my students experience this as well. I have taught students who are 16-year-olds, I've taught students who are 50 years old, and each one has their own inner demons, they're fighting their own battles. I particularly remember I had one student who came to me and she had tears in her eyes before class. I didn't ask any questions. We did warm up and then I taught her her pole lesson. And after that, she came and she gave me a tight hug. And she said, before joining this class, I was in a very, very dark space. I was suicidal and I was caught up in this web of depression. But when she was on the pole, all those noises were just blanked out. All she could be was present in the moment. The past didn't matter, the future didn't worry her. So pole, she learned that if I could try to master my body on this vertical steel pole, I could definitely try and master my mind out there in the world. I have also had men come for classes and they've confessed to me that sometimes they hide this fact from their peers or they are mocked by people. Why? Because they're going against all masculine stereotypes. This is a women's space. How can you go there? Oh, you're so feminine. This is what women do. They dance sensually. What are you doing there? But once they come, they realize that the pole is so neutral. The pole is so accepting that they keep coming back again and again. So every day I see myself and I see my students fighting these different battles of society that society plays in front of us, And we also learn that there are no shortcuts in life. Pole teaches you that. I think the only time we use shortcuts in life is when we put on Google Maps and it takes you to your destination, faster. But that doesn't work in life. It doesn't work on the pole. You have to start from scratch. You have to put in the hard work to see the results. You could be the strongest person deadlifting 100 kgs in the gym, bench pressing God knows how much of weight there. But when you come to the pole, you will be humbled. You will have to leave your ego at the door because you will struggle in your first pole climb. And you know what you realize? That's the beauty of it. You learn to enjoy the process. You learn to put in the work. Forget about the results. The results will come. What you gain is equivalent to the work that you put in. And the same thing applies in life. I've also learned, and I tell my students this all the time, we're all part of this rat race in life. This one is doing this. It starts from school. Ramesh uncle's daughter did this or son did this, came first, you have to come first. But no, what pole teaches you is that this journey is mine alone. This is my body. That is your body. Your strengths and your weaknesses are completely different from my strengths and weaknesses. And we have to focus just on that. There is no room for envy, jealousy, any sort of comparison. The only competition on the pole and in life is with the one you see in the mirror. And I think the sooner we understand that, the better it is for us. And I'm so grateful that pole has taught me these lessons. And I really try to say that to everyone that I meet and, students who come to me for class. Today, I am almost 40 years old, and I think I'm the strongest version of myself. I can do the human flag. I can perhaps do more pull-ups than most men in the gym. I think I've touched not all limits, but I've reached this level of physical and mental clarity in my mind that pole has brought. There is strength emotionally and physically, and they're very well balanced. I have to share this with you. I performed on national television, and before that, I was actually warned about the judges. I was told that the judges will probably criticize you because you're doing pole dancing. So I was okay, let's see this. I did my piece, and instead of criticism, I received a standing ovation. And I stood on that stage and I cried. Not because of them clapping for me, but I cried because pole got the respect and the love it deserves. It has touched so many lives. It has changed so many lives. It has given us body positivity, body confidence, motivation. It has given us goals. It has taught us so many life lessons. And that's when I realized, if I hadn't realized it before, I realized on that stage that my soul had found its purpose. My purpose was I was born to pole. I was born to train pole. I was born to learn off pole, and I was born to learn from pole. When I pole, it is like worship. For me, pole is a prayer in motion. My body, mind, and soul are connected. When I touch the pole, like I did just before this, it ceases to be an apparatus. It becomes a part of me, an extension of me. And together, we create magic. And today I see 80-year-old pole dancers online. Yes, 80-year-old pole dancers. And I see my future. I want to be 80 and I want to continue spinning and defying every limit that they place on the human body. That is my goal, and I hope the goal of all the students that I have taught as well. We have one life, we have one body. We have to put in the work, and we have to stop thinking about what they will say and instead focus on what we can do. We have to stop thinking about what our body looks like and focus on what our body can do and celebrate it for that. My journey at 32 was just the beginning. Your journey, whatever your pole is, whatever field, that is your pole. I want you to find it and claim it. Because let me tell you, you can, you will, and you totally must. Thank you.